Good morning, fourth grade. We are going to continue our work in chapter 19 with addition and subtraction of decimals. We are going to be skipping over lesson 19.3 and 19.4. The reason why it's pretty repetitive and all that you really need to know we can do in 19.5 together. So to get started, please make sure you have your textbook open to page 501. Please label your math journal 19.5, record addition and subtraction of decimals, and take down these notes. Pause the video until you're ready. All right, by this time you should have all of your materials out and open, and you should have these notes recorded in your journal. We're going to need these steps today to help us record addition and subtraction of decimals. Our first step, similar to yesterday when we were estimating, we need to line up each digit by place value. We need to make sure that the decimal points in each number are stacked on top of each other. That's very, very important. That is how we make sure that the digits are lined up by place value. Then step 2, we need to make sure each number has the same number of digits. If they don't, then we need to add zeros to the end if needed. So I'll show you how to do that in a moment. We want to make sure that we have the same amount of digits so that we can do the addition and subtraction properly. Step 3, we need to add or subtract as usual, starting at the furthest place value to the right. Then, once we're all done, we need to bring the decimal point down to the answer in the same position it is in above with the original numbers for the problem. Let me show you what this looks like. So I'm going to work out number 2. You can work this out with me as well. For an 8/10 plus 2 and 4/10. I want you to notice here, do you see how my tenths are with my tenths, my decimal points are all stacked up, and my ones are with my ones? That's very important when we are adding and subtracting decimals. Everything has to be lined up by place value. Okay, so that is step 1. Now I can, this was step 1 and 2 actually, so now I can begin to add because this is addition. I can begin to add starting with the first, the smallest place value, just like we do in regular addition. We start with the ones. Well, we're going to start at whatever number is the smallest place value, which in this number it is the tenths. I also see that both my decimals are the same number of digits, so I don't need to add any extra zeros. They're already the same. So I'm going to begin adding. 8 plus 4 is 12. 2, regroup the 1. 4 plus 1 plus 2 is 7. Then my last step is to bring down the decimal point to my answer exactly where it is in the problem. I just brought it straight down so that we should be able to draw a straight line from all of the decimals because they're lined up perfectly. So our final answer is 7 2/10. We are not estimating these today, so anytime you see the word estimate, then record the sum or difference, you can just skip that. All right, number 3. 35 and 83/100 minus 12 and 18/100. Make sure you've lined up each digit by their place value. I have hundredths, tenths, decimal points, and so on. Everything should be in a nice straight line. All right. I also see that both of the numbers I'm working with are the same amount of digits, so I don't need to add any extra zeros. Since everything is lined up, everything's the same amount of digits, I can begin by subtracting, starting with the furthest smallest place value, which is the hundredths. So 3 take away 8. I cannot do that, so I need to borrow. My 8 becomes a 7, my 3 becomes a 13. 13 take away 8 is 5. 7 take away 1 is 6. Bring that decimal point right down to where it was in the original numbers and continue working. 5 take away 2 is 3. 3 take away 1 is 2. So 35 and 83 hundredths minus 12 and 18 hundredths equals 23 and 65 hundredths. So once you get all of the decimal points lined up and the place value lined up and you make sure it's the same amount of digits, this is just regular addition and subtraction. It just has a decimal point in it. So it's really important that you're checking yourself before you begin. That's really the only difference for subtraction of decimals, is that we are needing to be extra careful as we set things up, more careful than in normal addition and subtraction. Let's continue working on number 4. I'm going to try to avoid that squiggly line in our board. Okay, so $23.44 plus 19 and 85 hundredths. Make sure each of your digits is lined up by place value, hundredths, tenths, decimal points, ones, tenths. Check that we are doing addition and then start the adding. Everything is the same number of same number of digits, so we can begin. 4 plus 5 is 9. 4 plus 8 is 12. 2, regroup the 1. Carry that decimal point right down where it was in the original problem. 1 plus 3 plus 9 is 13. 3, regroup the 1. 1 plus 2 plus 1 is 4. And bring down that dollar sign. All right, number 5. 67 and 1/10 minus 9 and 98 hundredths. Now, this is the first time that I have had two numbers that, although they're the same amount of digits, like 67 and 1/10 is 3 digits, and 9 and 98 tenths is also 3 digits, I need to add a 0. I want you to think of why I need to do that. Imagine with me for a moment that we took this number, this problem. Imagine for a moment what would be wrong about setting up the subtraction like this. I have things lined up, sort of. I mean, the 3 digits are stacked on top of other 3 digits, but what makes this incorrect? If you're thinking that what makes this incorrect is that they're not lined up by place value, you're absolutely correct. Here, I have the 6 is in the tens place and the 9 is in the ones place. I can't do 6 take away 9 in this problem because it's actually 60 take away 9, and this is not showing that properly. So I need to shift everything over like we have here, and I need to instead make sure everything is lined up by place value. So I do have everything lined up by place value. I have my tens, my ones, my tenths, and my hundredths. But when I do that, I'm left with this open space here because my first number doesn't have any hundredths. So if it has no hundredths, that's the same thing as having 0 hundredths. So I'm just going to add a 0. I don't like how I did that though, so I'm going to try to make that neater. So I'm just going to add a 0 there so that every one of my numbers now comes out to the same place value. So because one of my numbers comes out to hundredths, I need the other one to also come out to hundredths. Okay, so all I did for that is just add an extra 0 at the end. Remember, that doesn't change the value of the number. This is just it's just a placeholder. it doesn't have a value. It's worth 0 hundredths, so I'm not changing anything about this number by adding that on there. Now that I've done that, we can go ahead and begin subtracting. Again, it's very important that you check what the sign is before you begin. That's probably the easiest way to make mistakes. Let me get in there and erase that. Thank you for your patience. All right, so let's begin subtracting. 0 take away 8. I cannot do that. I need to regroup. I go to my next door neighbor. My 1 becomes a 0. My 0 becomes a 10. 10 take away 8 is 2. 0 take away 9. I can't do that again. Borrow from my neighbor. The 7 becomes a 6. The 0 becomes a 10. 10 take away 9 is 1. Bring down that decimal point. 6 take away 9. Ooh, can't do that again. We're doing a lot of borrowing. 6 becomes a 5. This 6 becomes a 16. 16 take away 9 is 7. And 5 take away nothing is 5. So I'm left with 57 and 12 hundredths. All right. We're going to do a couple more together. Remember, anytime it says estimate, we're going to just cross that off. We're not doing that today. We're just recording the sum or difference. So I'm going to solve a couple more with you, and then I'm going to ask you to do some on your own in just a minute. Let me just remember where I put that. Oh, I didn't put that in today's lesson. Okay. So I'll solve out a couple more with you and then have you do some by yourself. So number 7, 6 and 5/10 plus 3 and 9/10. Step 1, make sure that all of your digits are lined up by place value. Step 2, make sure that your digits are coming out to the same place value, and if they're not, add an extra 0 at the end. Which this problem is doing just fine. Everything's lined up and coming out to the same place. So now we can begin our addition. 5 plus 9 is 14. 4, regroup the 1. 1 plus 6 plus 3 is 10. And I make sure I have that decimal point right where it belongs. Remember, we should be able to draw a straight line through all of our decimal points. All right, number 8. 71 and 82 hundredths minus 52 and 39 hundredths. Make sure, step 1, that all of your decimals are lined up. Make sure those decimal points are stacked on top of each other. And check which operation you're doing. We're doing subtraction for this problem. So we can go ahead and begin. 2 take away 9, I cannot do. I have to borrow. 8 turns into a 7. My 2 turns into a 12. 12 take away 9, I can do now. That equals 3. 7 take away 3 is 4. Bring down that decimal point. 1 take away 2, I cannot do. I have to borrow. The 7 becomes a 6. The 1 becomes an 11. 11 take away 2 is 9. 6 take away 5 is 1. I'm left with 19 and 43 hundredths. In just a moment, I'm going to ask you to pause the video and solve out numbers 9 and 10 on your own. Make sure that you are lining up the digits by place value, that you are checking to make sure they all come out to the same place, and that you're checking which operation you are supposed to be doing. I'm going to get you set up here. $31.50 minus 19 and 17 hundredths. All right, go ahead and solve numbers 9 and 10. Pause the video until you're ready. All right, so by now you should have solved these on your own, so I'm going to give you the final answers. Number 9, you should have found a total of $123.45. And number 10, you should have found, sorry, I'm doing it on my calculator real quick because I didn't have it solved before you. Number 10, you should have found $12.33. Did you get those right? If you didn't, why don't you pause, go back and resolve and try to see your error. All right, we're going to move on for right now. There's one more skill I want to show you. So you're going to be doing a little bit of algebra today. Really, it's just continuing doing what we have been doing, but you're going to need to use your critical thinking skills a little bit. So you'll have a couple problems on your assignment today that look just like this. The directions say find the missing decimals. The sums are given at the end of each row and the bottom of each column. So what this is going to look like is it's saying that these three numbers equal this total, and these three numbers equal this total. So they give you all of the information you need to be able to find what this blank spot is. I'm going to show you a simple way to do it that should be able to work for all of your problems. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you whatever the numbers are in the row that they show you, you need to add those together. The reason why is the word sum means to add. It means the total done after adding. So I know that these two plus whatever this is going to give me 33 and 83 hundredths. So this is a two-step problem. I'm going to first add what they give me, and then I'm going to take that total away from our final total to see what the missing number is going to be. So I'll work some of those out with you. So number 17, our first step is to add what they give us. So 21 and 5/10 plus 0 and 64 hundredths. Remember to line things up by their place value. This is an excellent example of why we do that. Those decimal points should be stacked right on top of each other that I could draw a straight line through them. Okay. Now I see here that my first number is not coming out to the same number of digits, so I need to add a 0 at the end there so I can do the addition properly. So I'm going to do that. 0 plus 4 is 4. 5 plus 6 is 11. 1, regroup the 1. Bring down that decimal point. 1 plus 1 is 2, and 2 plus nothing is 2. So together that equals 22 and 14 hundredths. Now, I know that 22 and 14 hundredths plus whatever this is supposed to be should equal what's at the end of the row. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my final answer, 33 and 83 hundredths, and I'm going to subtract 22 and 14 hundredths. The reason I'm doing that is because that should give me what this final total is, because if I add my difference that I get here plus the sum, it should give me 33 and 83 hundredths. So let's work on this subtraction. I have my digits all aligned. I hope you do too. I hope your decimal points are lined up so you could draw a straight line through them. This one comes out to the same place value, so we don't need to add any extra zeros. We can just work on this subtraction. 3 take away 4, I cannot do. The 8 becomes a 7, the 3 becomes a 13. 13 take away 4 is 9. 7 take away 1 is 6. Bring down the decimal point. 3 take away 2 is 1, and 3 take away 2 is 1. So I have 11 and 69 hundredths should be what this blank spot is. Now to prove that to you, I'm going to add it back to 22. You don't need to write this out with me. This is just to prove to you that we're doing the right thing. 22 and 14 hundredths is what we got when we added these two together. So now I'll add back in the missing spot that we just figured out, and we should end up, when we add these together, we should end up with this total here. So 4 plus 9 is 13, 1 plus 1 plus 6 is 8, 2 plus 1 is 3, and 2 plus 1 is 3. We ended up with 33 and 83 hundredths, so that is the correct way to do this. So I want you to try that. So you're going to add the two that they give you. So for number 18, you're going to add the two that are given, and then you're going to subtract it from your final answer, whatever you get, okay? And that should give you this final piece. So I want you to go ahead and pause the video and solve number 18 and 19. All right, so hopefully you've paused the video and you've been solving it out. I'm going to give you the answers for number 18 and 19. So number 18, you should have added 17 and 16 hundredths plus 65 and 2 tenths. You needed to add an extra 0 onto the end of that. You should have gotten a total. Let me give myself some room here. I'm going to actually clear out my problem from before so that I have some more room to write. So number 18, when you added those together, you should have gotten 82 and 36 hundredths. And then you should have subtracted that from 85 and 34 hundredths. And your total in that blank spot should be 2 and 98 hundredths. If you didn't get that, go ahead and go back, check your work, pause the video, and see if you can get back to that answer. Number 19, when you added those two together, 58 and 7 tenths plus 9 and 34 hundredths, you should have gotten a total of 68 and 4 hundredths. And then when you subtracted that from the final sum, which was 70 and 24 hundredths, you should have gotten a total of 2 and 2 tenths. So again, if you did not arrive at those answers, pause the video, go rework your work and see if you can get back to those places. All right, we are going to move on now to our independent work. Your assignment today is completing 19.5 PW. You're going to solve all of it. You will need a separate piece of paper to show your work because your work page is not enough space to solve neatly. I'd like you to take that 19.5 PW out, and anywhere that you see the word estimate, go ahead and cross that off. I don't need you to estimate your answers today. I just need you to solve, okay? So good luck on your work, and I will see you soon.